Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you once again on this here Saturday. Just wanted to kind of do a little video to let y'all know I'm still alive and still kicking. One of the reasons I hadn't really been on there, hold on, let me turn this light off. It's just washing things out. There we go. I'm up here at the shop. One of the things is that I've really had a lot of things I've been trying to work out, because once I become aware of the fact that we're in the little season, and just it seems like there's a flood of information and stuff that's coming out about things that really throws everything, like I said before, everything I've ever been taught. Now, it's not to say that stuff wasn't true. It's just when it happened. That all of that stuff, pretty much all of the scriptures, all of the Bible, it's all been fulfilled. It's all been done. Now, there is pieces here and there that point to the time we're living in, but I think that one of the things that I've come to realize, me and one of the people who's a follower on here, Hitless Gaming, we were talking about it, and that's about the Sabbath. And I even had mentioned it before, about this guy I listened to. It was like about a year ago video, and he had worked out a calendar and he come to the conclusion that the Sabbath was on Wednesday. But one of the things I got to thinking about is, calling into question everything. Like the Bereans, be good Bereans. Listen to what I have to say with an open mind, but, search the scriptures and search your heart and pray that, to know the truth. More than anything, want to know the truth. And you have to question everything, because if we're in this little season, then Satan is like the video I done probably about 6 or 8 months ago about what would you do if you were Satan? You were bound for 1,000 years. What would you be doing? Well, of course, you'd be planning and scheming on how you were going to deceive the nations once you were released. I mean, so he's gone all out, and he's still going all out to try and deceive us. But so wouldn't he deceive us about the Sabbath? If these people that call themselves Jews but are not, they're Ashkenazis, they're not Hebrews. The nation of Israel ceased to exist in 70 A.D. That was the end of it. Now, those people that were converted and believed on the Messiah and accepted him, they were translated. They became immortals. But the ones that managed to escape the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple and all, those people went into the millennial kingdom just like anybody else that was still mortal. And they were taught the truth, and they didn't have wars and just, conflicts and destruction and all that stuff anymore. They were ruled with the rod of iron. So they went through the millennial kingdom, and their lives were expanded or extended, and their health was, they had healing, and that's the point in time when it talks about a man, being 100 years old and be considered a child. Okay, so they go through this millennial kingdom, and it comes to an end, and there is documented proof or books, some books that's been found recently. One was from a man who was supposedly the founder of the Amish, and he wrote a book telling people that they needed to be preparing for the release of Satan and the end of the millennial kingdom. Because I'm sure those people in the millennial kingdom were made aware that they were being, this was a testing period for them as well. And it was the purpose of it is you always have these people that say, well, if we did this and if we did that, in other words, if we had a utopia, then there wouldn't be no crime, there wouldn't be none of, well, yeah, there would be. Because unless you address the key issue, which is fallen man or fallen nature, unless you deal with that, you're still going to have that same nature, no matter how good it is. I mean, if everything, if they give you everything, a socialist utopia where, you had everything you need, I guarantee you they would still be corruption. It's still, the people at the top, people running things, it'd be just like it was in the Soviet Union. Everywhere they have communism or socialism, it's the same thing. The people suffer and the people at the top get richer and richer and live more opulently. It's what brought down the Soviet Union. So it doesn't work. And that's what the millennial kingdom was designed, I believe, to show them was, okay, you ain't got Satan now tempting you and messing with you. The adversary's not messing with you now. So you're free to express your creativity. You're free to build and do all kinds of things. Just don't fight each other. And I've seen something the other day where it says, oh yeah, they beheaded you and all that stuff if you didn't, just toe the line. Well, no, they didn't. No, he didn't. The only thing he said that he would do to people is if you didn't come up to Jerusalem, to the holy city, once during the Feast of Tabernacles, then you just wouldn't get no rain. I mean, there's nowhere that I've seen in Scripture it says that they would behead you and all that stuff. But anyway, I kind of sidetracked there. But it was designed to show them that even without Hasatan, they're tempting them stuff, they still had that nature. Until you are transformed, until he transforms you at the end, whenever you are, if you're converted and you're translated from a mortal body to an immortal body, and you're corrected, your thinking is corrected, then you're going to have tendencies to do wrong. Even when you are in Christ, we're still going to fall. We're still going to trip up. The key to it is to repent. I mean, if you do something wrong, make it right and repent of it. That's the basic bottom line I'm telling you is keep the commandments as best you can. Believe on Yahushua and the propitiation that he made. And, stay in prayer, and fast. And question things. Don't just take stuff at face value just because, oh, well, he's the preacher, he's the one that told me. Yeah, so what? That's called an appeal to authority. You accept what an authority figure says over what your own eyes a lot of times is showing you. It's just like about the earth, being flat. And these people believing it's a big ball of water, just spinning around out in endless space. When the evidence is everywhere that the earth is fixed and unmoving, and that we have a dome over us, and they've done everything they can to hide it. And matter of fact, hold on, I got a map. It's not the one that I thought I was getting. It's a Gleason map, but I wanted a Mercator map because it actually shows the Terra de Jesus, the land of Jesus or the land of Yahushua, and it's adjacent to the North Pole. It's adjacent to this continent, North America. And this is one of the things you have to understand is that whenever they fly around, they take all kinds of really crazy routes. The reason is they don't want you to see land masses and stuff that are there, that they are hiding. And let me get that map. I'm going to mount it on something, but I just ain't got around to it. There it is. That's the Gleason map, and I believe this is the most recent flat Earth map. That the Mercator map is older than this, and it shows it with no ice at all. And I believe that was during the Millennial Kingdom. And and I've talked about how I believe that the North Pole is where the Holy City is. Now, the Camp of the Saints, I don't know for sure about that. Now, I have listened to this other guy some, because I like to hear what people have to say, and then I pray about it, and roll this up. I pray about it and ask the Father to reveal the truth. Now, he talks about how he thinks that we may be in the period after judgment, in the 8th day. Because he said, where it talks about, in fact, and I'm using the King James, because, for most of it's accurate, but there's some of it that ain't right. Some of the translations ain't right. And I think they've added some stuff in there. And the other aspect is how they took out all the extra biblical books. They took them out, like the Apocrypha and stuff like that. They took them out, but then all these other books that the Bible mentions, I think it mentions over 40 different books. The book of Gad, the Seer, the book of the prophets, the book of Wars. There's a whole slew of books that it mentions and stuff. But it says over here, let's see, let me find where it is. I should have got this before, found this scripture before it started, but it talks about, here it is. It says, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his Elohim, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable, murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their place in the lake of fire. But it also goes on, it talks about with, here it is, the holy city, describes the holy city, and it says without, in other words, outside of that holy city, it says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Okay, so this is in Revelation chapter 22. So apparently, even after judgment and the absolute wicked are cast out into the lake of fire, anybody that still wants to do these things is going to be without the city. They won't be allowed to go into the city. So this guy says maybe that's what we're in right now, is that, we don't see the city because Christ said, except you be born again, you cannot see the kingdom of Elohim. So, in other words, if we're not born again, we can't see it. It's invisible to us, even though it's there and it's huge. I mean, it's so big that even if it's at the North Pole, we would be able to see that the structure from here. That's how big it is. But the other is that, like with that map, and there's people that believe that there's stuff outside of that, that ring there, that asphalt, that this world we're in is like here, and it's inside of an even bigger world. And it's like a moving around that thing like on a clock going around. Now, whether it is or not, I can't say one way or the other, because I can't see it. I can't get up and look down and see exactly what it's like. And nobody alive can. Nobody in this world can get up high enough to see the entire earth. You can't do it. But anyway, the point is that this guy's saying, hey, maybe we're in that period, and we're the dog. This is where the dogs and the whoremongers and the thieves and the murderers and the liars and all that is outside there, and they're not allowed to go into the city and can't see it until they're converted. And so this process that we're going through is a process to, just like those people that went through the millennial kingdom, come to the realization that they still had their fallen nature. That and they taught them that, and taught them, how to live right. And they may have been some of them that, but see, they still had to go through temptation. They the ones that were born during that period of time, they had to be tempted, be tested. So when they came out of the millennial kingdom, Satan was released, and he went after them immediately. They, had to get rid of those people, and the ones that refused to submit to him, they killed them. Or like the War of 1812, that's what Napoleon and them was doing, or the Napoleonic Wars, that's what they were doing. They were going around rounding these people up and killing them off. It wasn't about creating an empire or nothing. That's what we've been led to believe, but no, they were going around killing off all these people. And that's where all of these catacombs, all them bodies, millions and millions of them, they just buried them in big heaps. And, or boiled off their bone, the meat off their bones or something, or burn it off or whatever, and limed them or something and got the flesh off of them and then piled their bones up. But that's what they did. And so those people were converted. They were saved because when the temptation came, they were able to overcome it. But then the ones that began ruling and reigning with Satan, like them Rothschilds, and all these people, they took on these like Bibi Netanyahu. His name ain't Netanyahu. It's Warshawski or something. He's Polish. He just made up a name. They just make up names, and they don't even speak Hebrew. They speak Yiddish. It's a concoction, Germanic, Russian, or Slavic concoction of Hebrew. They took what they they probably ain't anybody really understands what Hebrew sounded like. For real. To be truthful. I mean, unless there is, and again, even in Christ's time, he didn't speak Hebrew, he spoke Aramaic. Because Hebrew had been relegated to a ceremonial language. Just like with the Romans didn't, they, for the most part, they didn't speak Latin. Even though that was their language, they didn't speak Latin, they spoke Greek. Because that was like what English is today. English is a language that's spoken, you can go to most countries and, probably half their people at least can speak English or speak some. But most Americans can't go over there and speak their language. Because English has become sort of the universal language. And that's what Greek had become. It had become it was so widespread because the Greek Empire was so widespread. It was like everywhere, just like the Romans. The Romans were everywhere. But that's, again, if you look at that Mercator map, all of the land is all close together. It's not a solid landmass. I mean, it's like rings of water, or bands of water and then land. But they're all right there together. And the whole earth is ice-free. There is no ice. And the where the ice wall is now is land. There's land all the way around. And I mean, it depicts different kinds of animals there, people. And so, and the thing is that the sun and the moon, supposedly, there's scripture, and I can't remember where it is, in Isaiah somewhere, but it talks about the sun being brighter and the moon being brighter during that period of time. And it melted off the ice. And maybe went up, and maybe they went higher up. I don't know. But so the world was different. People, and so if all the land masses were real close together, then having a worldwide empire would have been much easier. If it was like it is now, yeah, you might question whether Rome could have been everywhere. But if they were right there that close together, the land masses and stuff, then it would have been relatively easy to be everywhere. And also for the disciples and them to spread the gospel. Because it said that because they say that in I think it's in Corinthians maybe, or Thessalonians 1, that the whole world had heard the gospel. They'd already heard it back then. Not at some future time. They had already, it had been spread throughout the whole world. And Christ said, and it said that when the gospel is spread throughout the world, therein is the end. The end of an age. Not the end of the world. That's a mistranslation there. It says end of the world, but it's really end of the age. And it was the end of the age of the people of Israel, the Hebrew people. It was the end of that. It was the end of that system. It was the end. It was a new covenant, a renewed covenant, but without that system. Without that system of sacrificing animals and all that stuff. And those people cease to exist as a nation. They don't exist anymore. That's the reason when you see it in there, it says he's released to deceive the nations. There's no mention of Israel. There's no mention of Israel there because it doesn't exist anymore. He saved the people that he was going to save out of the nation of Israel. Christ said, of those that the Father has given me, I have lost none. And all the people in the past, like David and Abraham and Jacob and Moses and all them, those people, their belief was accounted unto them for righteousness. And it's going to be the same thing with us. our belief is going to be accounted to us for righteousness. But there's more expected out of us because more has been given to us. See, they didn't have all of what we have now. They didn't have scriptures and all of that, the scriptures that we have. So they were, it was accounted to them righteousness because they believed Elohim. They believed him. But we have to believe him too. I mean, that's what faith is or whatever, but I don't use the word faith, I use belief. But, we have to believe that he is. And we have to believe that Yahushua is. And, of course, his name, he had many names, just like we have. If in my language, in English, he's Jesus. In the Greek, he was Jesus. In the Spanish, it's Jesus. And so it's whatever your language is what his name is. But it's still taken from Yahushua or Yahuwah. Or not Yahuwah, but it's not Yeshua. It's not Yeshua. That's the false Christ. But I believe it's Yahushua. And the reason is because his name is Yah's salvation. And it's very similar to Joshua. Joshua is Yehoshua, Yah's deliverer, because he delivered the people into the promised land. Moses didn't. Moses died before then. He wasn't allowed to go into the promised land. He was only allowed to see it. And I believe it was here. I've really come to believe that Rome was, and I found this out, that over 300, well actually worldwide, something like 2,000 or 3,000 names of cities and stuff were changed from what they originally were. And here in the United States, over 300 were changed. Over 100 and some in Illinois alone. Why? Because they were names of ancient cities and towns. Up around the Great Lakes area up there, Michigan in that area, Montreal, Toronto, all that area, that was where Babylon was at. Egypt was down in the grain belt, down through the center, the Midwest, down into the lower Mississippi. And this is, I've mentioned to y'all about this guy. You ought to go watch this video. This guy does an excellent job. I mean, he really does a jam-up, professional-looking job. And he uses scripture to back up what he's saying. Because he's looking at the scriptures as what it describes, not what the necessarily what we've come to believe because of this false Israel over here and this false Egypt and all that stuff. He goes by the descriptions, like the description of the river there in Egypt. The one over there they call the Nile River over there in what they call Egypt today has 5 tributaries that feed into it. In other words, 5 other rivers that feed into it. But the one that the Bible describes has 7. It has 7 branches or 7 tributaries that feed into it. The only river in the world that has 7 branches or 7 tributaries is the Mississippi. It's the only one of all the great rivers in the world. And I've looked at the the Hallelujah scriptures, the names of the rivers there in Eden, and Eden is up there at the North Pole. That's where Eden was at. And I'm going to get one of them Mercator maps, and I'll show you that. And some of the land masses and stuff may have, subsided, may have went down into the water, been covered with water. I don't know. I would have thought that when the ice formed, that you would have had more land, because the water would have went down and been trapped in ice. And but I may be wrong. But so this just ought to show you. I mean, this ought to tell you just how deceived we have been. And I mean, there's a scripture that says he would deceive the entire world if it were possible. But for the sake of the elect, they won't be able to deceive everybody. Especially if your desire, he said he'll give you the desire of your heart. Okay, well, the desire of my heart is to know the truth. I want to know the truth. I do not want to be deceived. I don't want to be deceived. And so I pray a lot about it. I wake up in the middle of the night praying, man. And I want to know. And so it brings me to the next segment of what I kind of use that to lay the groundwork of, how we've been deceived and how Satan has operated this. And, I don't know how you feel about Donald Trump. He can be crass or whatever, but I liken Donald Trump to Jehu. He kind of reminds me of Jehu. Jehu killed Ahab, Jezebel, the king of Judah, and all of the people that were the priest of Baal that were left that Elijah hadn't killed. He killed them and all the worshipers. He killed them all. But when he went, and he was from the house of Israel, he was from the northern kingdom, because Ahab was the king of Israel. And I forgot who, I'd have to go look it up as to who was the king of Judah at that time, but they had joined together to go up against the Amorites or somebody. Or no, the Syrians. They joined together, I think, to go up against the Syrians. And Ahab got a arrow or whatever, and he disguised himself. And and the king of Judah fled, and the king of King Ahab, they all left in his chariot or whatever. And I don't know if Jehu killed him, but he might have found him after he and then finished killing him or whatever. I can't remember, but I know he killed the king of Judah for being in league with Ahab, and he also killed Jezebel, or caused her to fall off a balcony and bust her head open, and the dogs eat what was left. And then he told them to round up, get all the people that wanted to worship Baal to come down there. All the people that were worshiping Baal to his temple. And they all came down there, and what was left of the priesthood, they all went in there, and they got them all in there, and he had his people, Jehu had all his people around, and they went in there and they killed them all. But when he went back to his, and I think he ruled there for 10 years, and then but he never tore down the groves. He never tore down those statues that Jeroboam had set up there in Samaria and in Dan. He didn't tear them down. He didn't tear down the idols and all that stuff. Like he should. He should have, but he didn't. But he did destroy the worship of Baal, and there in Judah and in Israel, and he was kind of a wildcat. They, because they would see him coming, they knew it was they would know it was Jehu because he would be wide open. I mean, he'd have that chariot just squalling. And they said, that's Jehu coming, And when he'd get there, he said, you coming in peace or whatever? He said, peace, what? And he started killing them. He killed the king of Judah. Said, there ain't no peace. And so I liken Donald Trump sort of, some people compare him to Cyrus. But I've been watching what's going on. And unfortunately, probably 80 to 90% of the people have no idea what's going on with, Venezuela, Cuba, over there in Iran, the satanic system. And I'll show you the system by which Satan has been enslaving us. Is being dismantled, being attacked, and they don't like it. I'll be right back. Now, if you look here at this dollar bill, you see this pyramid. Well, this is us down here on the bottom. We're the serfs or whatever. Now, what they were trying to lead us to was basically feudalism. Kings and, dukes and earls and barons and all that kind of stuff. And we're serfs down here on the bottom. The World Economic Forum, you'll own nothing and be happy. That's what they were trying to bring in. With that capstone up there at the top, it's got 3 points on it, that pyramid at the top. That's the City of London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is nowhere to be found in our Constitution. It never was. That used to be called Rome. That's where Rome was at. That's where Rome was at. And Washington, D.C. was called Rome up until they changed the name of it. Again, they changed the names of about 300 different cities. All right, so, and all them buildings there, like the Capitol and the Supreme Court building and the Federal Reserve building and the Smithsonian, the buildings were there. They were already there. Didn't nobody build them, they were there. They was buildings everywhere. They was cities everywhere. Okay, and you can go and look at a lot of these buildings, and they'll have a cornerstone in there, and it'll say founded. And I've said this before. I mean, what the definition of founded means? It means I found it. I found it. I didn't build it, but I found it. So they found these buildings and they commandeered them. They took them. Whoever, Well, the City of London, and I've talked about this, about how the Rothschild banking system, Meyer Rothschild had 5 sons, okay? And he's one of these, his family or whatever, and these people, I think they may be either Nephilim or maybe even these fallen ones. Because I've seen pictures like Lord Jacob Rothschild supposedly just died here recently. I saw pictures of him, I mean exactly the same guy. Rothschild, back in the 1800s. Back in like the 1800s. See, what it is they have to die off. They have to orchestrate their death every so often so people don't get suspicious. Same thing like with Elon Musk. I mean, there's a picture they showed of this guy. It was a general back, Civil War era sometime in there. It's him to a T. Now, and of course, you can create families and all that stuff, actors, people that, say, oh yeah, we had him in the hospital over here, he's our son, blah, blah, blah. They can make all that stuff up. And unless you were there, how you gonna question it? So this Meyer Rothschild, and originally their name wasn't Rothschild, it was something else. But they had a coat of arms that was a red shield. And so Rothschild means red shield. So they took that as their name. And there's a whole bunch of other people involved too. They're all linked, they're 13 families. And so Meyer Rothschild had 5 sons, and he told his 5 sons, go and take over these banks. So they were in Germany. And because they were Jews, they weren't allowed to own anything. But they controlled money. And they got so powerful money-wise, and not only money, but their spy organization, their ability to get information very quickly. And before anybody else could. That's how they got the Bank of England, is that Nathan Rothschild went to England and he bought the newspaper there, the London Times or whatever. He bought the main paper. And this was during the time of the Napoleonic Wars. And so he was putting misinformation. He would get information before British intelligence, the British military could get information. He was getting it quicker. And so he would print something in there and it caused a panic. People believed that Napoleon was winning against the Russians or whatever, or whatever it is supposedly. And so they got in a panic and they all began to sell their stock in the Bank of England. And he bought it all up. So they got control of the Bank of England. And then they created that city of London, that 1 square mile area. And they controlled everything through chaos and fear. That's how they operate. And they controlled the flow of oil and the price of oil and what they call the terror premium that Lloyd's of London would charge. They were making trillions of dollars a year off of shipping, insuring ships that traveled in and out of the Strait of Hormuz over there. Because, and they put the Ayatollahs in over there. They were from the Muslim Brotherhood, and the city of London, the people there in the city of London, they created the Muslim Brotherhood back in 1920. And they like the old Praetorian Guard of the Roman Empire, because that's exactly what they are. They're just an extension, continuation of the Roman Empire. That's why when it talks about the 10 feet or the 2 feet with the 10 toes of iron mixed with clay, that's what it is. It's the continuation of that Roman Empire. And so what's going on is that Trump, they were using Venezuela as a money laundering place to launder money. And they were, the oil and all that too, but they were, they sponsor all of the drug cartels. All of the drug cartels are subservient to the city of London. So if you look at what Trump has done, he's gone after all the choke points. He's gone after all the money laundering areas. He's got and he brought all of the countries from down in South America. They demonstrated down in Venezuela the consequences of not doing business with us, of not going along with our plan. They used stuff down there that people did not believe existed. I'm talking about sonic weapons. They knocked out everything down there. You know, they had the latest, most advanced Russian and Chinese missile defense stuff, radar systems, supposed to be able to detect the F-22s. And they knocked it out just like that. We have EMP weapons that will knock anything like that out. I mean, you know, and then they went in there and they hit them guys with them sonic weapons. I mean, they said that the blood was running out of their eyes and nose, and they were throwing up convulsively and writhing on the ground. And the guy talking about these 20 special forces guys shooting 300 rounds a minute. They said they'd never seen nothing like it. Didn't even believe anything like that could happen. Well, you can imagine how that spread throughout South America. And so when he called a meeting down there in Doral, Florida, of all those leaders down there, the only one that didn't show up was Mexico. And that's because they are controlled by the cartels. You know, their president down there is just a figurehead. You know, and they're afraid of being executed. I mean, these people kill judges, law enforcement, generals. I mean, they kill, you know, you got to get rid of these people in order for them to be safe and able to function as a real country again. They're a cartel base is what they are. And so he called on all these countries, presidents and people, their leaders, to come to Doral, Florida, to develop, you know, you know, they were going to reveal to them the plan to get rid of these cartels, and they were going to help. Because that's one of their big, you know, the City of London and the banking cabal, that, you know, is one of their big streams of money. But it's also to destroy America by killing our young people with these drugs. This fentanyl and stuff. I mean, they're just dumping that stuff in there. And of course, you know, even though it may not appear that way, Trump and China and Russia are working together to, you know, because this system, this City of London system, they've been after the Russians. I mean, going back hundreds of years, they've been trying to destroy Russia. They, you know, and made them the boogeyman and the enemy. And the enemy is the City of London and the banking cabal. That's the enemy. That's Satan. Full in your face. And so, and of course there's going to be some pain. I mean, look at the oil prices and stuff. I mean, because this, you know, right now we have control of over 70% of the world's oil. And the Gulf of America down there is, these ships lined up for hundreds of miles out into the Atlantic Ocean out there waiting to go down there and pick up oil. The whole Middle East was established by the British. Those countries they're not really countries. It's all part of the scheme to keep chaos. And you had Israel over here and you got Iran over here. The threat of Iran all the time keeps the price of the price of oil up. It keeps the premiums, you know, the insurance premiums up on these ships. I mean, when a ship is having to pay a couple of $1 million in insurance premiums to go pick up one load of oil, you think about that. Think about how much that adds up to in a year. Trillions. Okay, it's the fear premium. And then the price of crude is set over there in the City of London. Brent crude. They don't have one drop of oil. They don't deliver a drop of oil. But yet they're setting the price of oil. And they collect 26 cents for every gallon. 26 cents. So you think about that. How many millions or billions of gallons of fuel are sold every year around the world? And they're collecting 26 cents of every dollar. Or the price of a gallon of gas. And so They're collecting the insurance premium. They're collecting the 26 cents Brent crude, Brent. Why? Why are they getting anything for setting the price? But yet they are. And so this system is everywhere. It's everywhere. And so, and our system, our government over here, I mean, our senators, congressmen, I mean, they are all bought and paid for corrupt. And they're being exposed. You've had 2 in just the last week that resigned out of Congress. And you're going to see a lot more. Not only are you going to see that, but you're going to see military tribunals. These people are going to be, they're trying to, President Trump is reinstituting the death penalty, death by firing squad. There are so many people up here that have sold this country out and its people out and robbed us blind. And there's over 60 senators that they have, come from Maduro. See, that's why they grabbed Maduro. They grabbed him, and he has told them everything about what was going on. There was 60 senators getting millions of dollars each. One of them was Rand Paul. The other one was Cory Booker. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. Why do you think that the news media, which is controlled by the City of London, and is controlled through the spy agencies, MI6, Mossad, CIA. MI6 was first, and its offspring is the CIA and Mossad and others. They create, these cultural, these what they call color revolutions. And they have these plants, these little mini armies or praetorians or whatever, all over Africa, all over it. And their job is to stir stuff up, keep stuff stirred up, keep these, and the same thing they done during colonialism over in Africa is they divided these countries up, not the way that their territories of the tribes was, but they just, they would create this country with 2 different tribes that were enemies to keep them at each other all the time while they're in there taking their natural resources and stuff. And this system it always takes out more than it ever puts in. It only puts in what it has to extract what it can. That's how it works. I mean, that's why if you look at the standard of living in America, how it has just continuously gone down, is because they continue to extract more out than they're putting in. And the only thing they put in is they put enough money and resources in to facilitate the extraction. That's why they were shipping all of the manufacturing to China, and they were going to move the center of power to China, because they don't care. Satan doesn't care where the center of power is. It doesn't matter to him. They were going to move it from here. That's why they were, letting our military go. Until Trump came in 2016, he began to arm the military. And one of the things, and I've talked about this, I think the last time, about the vision of George Washington. And I believe this is exactly what's going to happen, because this is what Satan and his bunch, they're not going to just roll over. They're not going to roll over. I mean, and they're going to attack us. And this is pretty interesting. I mean, I printed it off. It's George Washington's vision and prophecy about America. And it was told to this guy by the last surviving man of the Revolutionary War. He was 99 years old, and he was getting ready to, he died right after that. And in 1859, right before the Civil War. And you see, America, when it was founded they created an economic system that would make a country prosperous, inventive, creative, and made us an economic powerhouse. I mean, in fact, between 1880 and 1910, before the Federal Reserve Act was implemented and the Federal Reserve Bank was created, the American system of political economy that was created by Alexander Hamilton, like in the early 1800s, and I think his paper was called it was like a letter to manufacturers. He wanted to make America a manufacturing powerhouse instead of importing everything from England, because the British did not want us to have any kind of industry here, other than cotton and tobacco or something, and that was it. They did not want us to have, industrial capacity. So they created this American system because, they try to tell you there's only two kinds of systems. There's either imperial capitalism or socialism. There's no alternative, but there's the American system of political economy. It's a system that's fair because there's no taxation. In the Constitution, you can't tax the citizen. You got to collect your revenue somewhere else. Well, they collected it through tariffs. You want to sell here in the United States, fine, but you're going to pay an entry fee to do that because we can produce our own stuff. We don't need your stuff. And we did. We produced everything. Well, from 1880 to 1910, they took in so much money that they had to form a committee to figure out what to do with it. So they began to build all these infrastructure projects, roads and highways and bridges and dams, and just started building all this infrastructure around. And so Trump, that's why he implemented all these tariffs. And his I think he's the Assistant Treasury Secretary, Jameson Greer. He was over there in Davos or somewhere, and he was telling them that, we are implementing the Hamiltonian system, and this system that y'all created is done. It's over. It's collapsing. And see, what they always do whenever their system begins to fall under its own weight, because this money is worthless. This is fiat money. Right there, on there, if you look at that, it says this note is debt. This is debt. It's debt. It's not real. It's not backed up by anything. It's called fiat. It's worthless. And that's why the whole country and the whole world is in debt to these people, to the tune of hundreds of trillions of dollars, hundreds of trillions. That's going away. The IRS is going away. The Federal Reserve is going away. And we're going to be on the quantum financial system. It's all going away. But these people are not going to stop. So, that's why they tried to flood the country with all these millions of people from around the world. We don't know where they come from, who they are, and most of them were from terrorist organizations. That was all directed by the United Nations, the Vatican, and the City of London. They are behind it all. And they're doing the same thing in Europe over there. In the last 15 years, they've tucked in 60 million over there. Why? Because they're going to use them to attack us. They knew what was coming. They knew this was coming. They tried to stop it. They tried to assassinate Trump. They tried to impeach him. They tried all the lawfare. They tried all that stuff. But yet the man's still standing. And that's why I believe that the Most High has his hand on him. He's using him to expose all of it, to expose all the corruption, everything. And he took and he uses memes and stuff, memes and tweets or whatever, on Truth Social. People think he's talking to us and stuff, but he's not. He's talking to these people. Like the other day, and he didn't create the meme, somebody else did, but he posted it, and it was a meme showing him laying his hands on somebody and healing them. He wasn't claiming to be Christ or nothing like that. It was just showing that he was a healer, because he is trying to heal us. He's trying to heal this country. Because there's so much division here, and a house that's divided against itself cannot stand. But that was a message to the Vatican. People have no idea. Every penny that the IRS takes in, it don't go to the government to help, pay the bills and all that. It goes to the Vatican. And you can look in their bylaws or their charter or whatever it is. They're not even incorporated here in the United States. They're incorporated in Puerto Rico. It says in there that paying taxes is voluntary. And of course, in our Constitution, they had to change the Constitution, make an amendment to make the IRS legal. But they still, the amendment in there telling us, and in the Constitution telling us that you will not tax the people. You got to raise your money some other way. That's why they use tariffs and VAT taxes and duties and stuff. That's how you're supposed to pay for the operation of the government. And the federal government is not supposed to be this great behemoth that we have. It was charged with two specific functions. One, the regulation of interstate commerce. Two, national defense. That's it. All these other functions were supposed to be done at the state level. Each state was supposed to take care of their own people. But all the states, again, they're incorporated. They went away from their constitutions. And the other thing is the election system is so rigged up. And I believe, I've not heard it from the president, but I believe that come the election, the midterm, that there's going to be the National Guard or ICE agents at the polls. They're going to have paper ballots, no mail-in ballots, and you're going to have to show proof of ID and that you are a U.S. citizen in order to vote. And because all these illegals coming in, they've been letting them vote in these blue states and all that stuff. They've been giving them IDs and everything else. And so getting the border under control, that was one thing that had to, that was a priority to get that under control immediately. So that was the first thing he did, to secure the border, stop all these people coming in, because these people were coming from Africa, China, Russia, the Middle East. They were coming from everywhere, not just down in Central and South America. They were coming from everywhere. And it was basically to bring them people in here to destroy us. And to vote these Democrats, these democrats, because even George Washington, back when the Democrats first showed up here from England, they came from England, he said, be wary of the Democrats and their democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic, and there's a huge difference. Democracy is about that far from being socialism or communism. And they created all of them. They created, the Rothschilds, that bunch, all of them, they created communism as to act as, they created all these different religions. I mean, they behind all of it. The City of London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C., they have been behind all of it. And they're as evil as you can get. And I believe, that we're to stand up against evil. We're supposed to stand up against evil. It's just like that German guy said over, he was a priest or something, or a preacher or whatever, minister. He says that evil prevails when good men do nothing. And so, now how it shakes out in the end, I don't know. But I know that from what I've been seeing, and it's not just what people are saying, it's what you see too. The reshoring of manufacturing. They're building factories everywhere. I mean, they started like 136 factories just in the last couple of months. We're reshoring all of our, healthcare stuff and all of the critical minerals and everything that's critical to our national defense. Because I believe that what this man saw is coming. Because, once I began to realize that we're in this little season and that all that other stuff is all done happening, then I began to think, well, what is, then what's going to happen? What is going to happen? Now, we know it says that they come up against the camp of the saints. Well, where is that? Where is the camp of the saints? Could it be here? Because I believe this is where Israel was at. That this is where the mountain of God is. Because even the Native Americans say that mountain out there that the Hebrews supposedly camped at, they said they called it the mountain of the gods. Because it thundered and lightning up there all the time. And they were afraid to even go near it. And they even say that there were white people here before them. That they was people, they called them the ancients. They were already here. So, with that in mind, that nothing that we've been told is right, is real. Everything is a lie. And so with that in mind, and it is well established that Washington was a praying man. I mean, it was well known that he would go out into the woods and he would pray, to tears. Because they went through a lot against the British, against the Satanists. I mean, they suffered tremendously. Because it was only like maybe 20% of the population that was fighting against them. Fighting against that evil. So I'm going to read this, and you can make of it what you will. I mean, it just, something about it rings true with me. I don't know. George Washington's vision as recorded in the Library of Congress. The father of our country, George Washington, was a man of prayer. We have all read how he went to the thicket many times to pray during the winter his army was at Valley Forge. However, little publicity has been given to the vision and prophecy he received at that time. The first-hand account, now this is the first-hand account of this vision, was given in 1859 by an old soldier named Anthony Sherman. He gave it to a writer, Wesley Bradshaw, who published it. In the vision, Elohim revealed to George Washington that 3 great perils would come upon the Republic. I need to close that door because they are so loud. It says, 3 great perils would come upon the Republic. He was given to know that America was going through the first peril, the Revolution, at that time. The old soldier who told the story of the vision said that the nation would soon see the account verified by the second peril descending upon the land. Now he's telling this in 1859. Well, in 1861, the second peril, the Civil War, and he, it says the account was taken from the reprint in the U.S. War Veterans paper, the National Tribune, in December 1880. The National Tribune is now called the Stars and Stripes. That's a military newsletter or whatever that they circulate. So this article was reprinted in the Stars and Stripes December 21st, 1950. In the report of this phenomenal and most important heavenly message for us at this hour, Wesley Bradshaw wrote, "The last time I ever saw Anthony Sherman was on the 4th of July, 1859 in Independence Square. He was then 99 years old and becoming very feeble, but though so old, his dimming eyes rekindled as he gazed upon Independence Hall, which he came to visit once more. Message disclosed. Let us go into the hall," he said. "I want to tell you of an incident of Washington's life, one which no one alive knows of except myself. And if you live, you will before long see it verified. Mark the prediction, you will see it verified. From the opening of the Revolution, we experienced all phases of fortune, now good and now ill, one time victorious, another conquered. The darkest period we had, I think, was when Washington, after several reverses, retreated to Valley Forge, where he resolved to pass the winter of 1777. I have often seen the tears coming down our dear commander's careworn cheeks, as he would be conversing with a confidential officer about the condition of his poor soldiers. You have doubtless heard the story of Washington's going to the thicket to pray. Well, it was not only true, but he used it often to pray in secret for aid and comfort." You have to give me a little break here. Sorry about that, folks. I had to close that door. It's just so loud, and too, this kind of touches me, you know. I mean, it says, message disclosed. Let us go into the hall, he said. I want to tell you of an incident of Washington's life. One which I read that nobody knows except himself. And it says, from the opening of the Revolution, we experienced all these, different things, ups and downs. And said, you've doubtless heard the story of Washington's going to the thicket to pray. Well, it was not only true, but he used often to pray in secret and for aid and comfort. And Elohim brought us safely through the darkest days of tribulation. One day, I remember it well, the chilly winds whistled through the leafless trees. Though the sky was cloudless and the sun shone brightly, he remained in his quarters nearly all the afternoon alone. When he came out, I noticed that his face was a shade paler than usual, and there seemed to be something on his mind of more than ordinary importance. Returning just after dusk, he dispatched an order to the quarters of an officer, who was presently in attendance. After a preliminary conversation of about a half hour, Washington, gazing upon his companion with that strange look of dignity which he alone could command, said to the I don't know what that word is. I got a line down through this page here, and said to the latter, Latter, I do not know whether it is owing to the anxiety of my mind or what, but this afternoon, as I was sitting at this table engaged in preparing a dispatch, something in the apartment seemed to disturb me. Looking up, I beheld standing opposite me a singularly beautiful being, female. So astonished was I, for I had given strict orders not to be disturbed, that it was some moments before I found language to inquire the cause of the visit, her presence. A second, a third, and even a fourth time did I repeat my question, but received no answer from my mysterious visitor except a slight raising of her eyes. By this time, I felt strange sensations spreading through me. I would have risen, but the riveted gaze of the being before me rendered volition impossible. I essayed once more to speak, address her, but my tongue had become useless, as if though it had become paralyzed. A new influence, mysterious, potent, irresistible, took possession of me. All I could do was to gaze steadily, vacantly at my unknown visitor. Gradually, the surrounding atmosphere seemed to fill with sensations and grew luminous. Everything about me seemed to rarefy. The mysterious visitor herself also becoming more airy and yet more distinct to my sight than before it began to feel than before. I began to feel as one dying, or rather to experience the sensations which I have sometimes imagined accompanying death. I did not think, I did not reason, I did not move. All were alike impossible. I was only conscious of gazing fixedly, vacantly at my companion. First great peril. Presently I heard a voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn," while at the same time my visitor extended her arm eastward. I now beheld heavy white vapor at some distance rising fold upon fold. This gradually dissipated, and I looked upon a strange scene. Before me lay, spread out in one vast plain, all the countries of the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, and America. I saw rolling and tossing between Europe and America the billows of the Atlantic, and between Asia and America lay the Pacific. "Son of the Republic," said the same mysterious voice as before, "look and learn." At that moment I beheld shadowy being like an angel standing, or rather floating in midair between Europe and America, dipping water out of the ocean. In the hollow of each hand he sprinkled some upon America with his right hand, and with his left hand he cast some over Europe. Immediately a cloud arose from these countries and joined in mid-ocean. For a while it remained stationary, and then it moved slowly westward until it enveloped America in its murky folds. Sharp flashes of lightning gleamed through it at intervals, and I heard the smothered groans and cries of the American people, probably the War of Independence. Second great peril. A second time the angel dipped from the ocean and sprinkled it out as before. The dark cloud was then drawn back to the ocean, in whose heaving billows it sank from view. A third time I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." I cast my eyes upon America and beheld villages and towns and cities springing up one after another until the whole land, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, was dotted with them. Again I heard the mysterious voice say, "Son of the Republic, the end of the century comes. Look and learn." And this time the dark shadowy angel turned his face outward. From Africa I saw an ill-omened specter approach our land. It flitted slowly and heavily over every town and city of the latter. The inhabitants presently set themselves in battle array against each other. As I continued looking, I saw a bright angel on whose brow rested a crown of light on which was traced the word Union. He was bearing the American flag. He placed the flag between the divided nation and said, "Remember, you are brethren." Instantly the inhabitants, casting down their weapons, became friends once more and united around the national standard, probably the Civil War. Third and most fearful peril. Again I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." At this the dark, shadowy angel placed a trumpet to his mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts, And taking water from the ocean, he sprinkled it upon Europe, Asia, and Africa. Then my eyes beheld a fearful scene. From each of these continents arose thick black clouds that were soon joined into one, and throughout the mass were gleaming a dark red light, by which I saw hordes of armed men. These men, moving with the cloud, marched by land and sailed by sea to America, which country was enveloped in the volume of cloud. And I dimly saw these vast armies devastate the whole country and the villages, towns, and cities which I had seen springing up. As my ears listened to the thundering of the cannon, clashing of the swords, and the shouts and cries of millions in mortal combat, I again heard the mysterious voice say, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." Where the voice had ceased, the dark, shadowy angel placed his trumpet once more to his mouth and blew a long and fearful blast. Heaven intervenes. Instantly a light as of 1,000 suns shone down from above me and pierced and broke into fragments the dark cloud which enveloped America. At the same moment, the angel whose head still shone the word Union and who bore our national flag in one hand and a sword in the other, descended from the heavens attended by legions of white spirits. These immediately joined the inhabitants of America, who I perceived were well nigh overcome, but who immediately taking courage began, closed up the broken ranks, and renewed the battle. Again, amid the fearful noise of the conflict, I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." As the voice ceased, the shadowy angel for the last time dipped water from the ocean and sprinkled it upon America. Instantly the dark cloud rolled back, together with the armies it had brought, leaving the inhabitants of the land victorious. Then once more I beheld the villages, towns, and cities springing up where I had seen them before, while the bright angel planted the azure standard he had brought in the midst of them, cried with a loud voice, "While the stars remain and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so long shall the Union last." And taking from his brow the crown on which blazed the word Union, he placed it upon the standard, while the people kneeling down said, "Amen." And so, I mean, you can take from it whatever you want. It's kind of touching. I mean, it really, stuff don't usually move me like that, but that does. It's just something about it. Well, I watched that guy Trey. I can't think of his last name, but he done it, and he broke down too. And from what I've been seeing, like going on over there in Europe, that place is a madhouse. Like I said, they've let like 65 million of these people in from North Africa, and I think it's all part of this. That, you know, Russia and China's going along with us because we're still the most powerful country in the world and economically most powerful. But I think that Europe is bringing those people in there to amass an army. And, you know, and there's a big call over there to, you know, for a European army. You know, no NATO, just a European army. And we're talking about pulling out of NATO. And so, you know, I think that, like I said, China and Russia is going along with us, but I don't think they particularly like it. They're just doing it because we are still the most powerful country in the world militarily and economically. And, you know, and we're using the carrot and stick. we're offering them, you know, benefits if they go along with this new system, but at the same time they are full of these devils too. I mean, it's just, you know, it is just the way it is. And these followings, I think that, like I said earlier about those Rothschilds and that bunch, I mean, they either are the offspring of them fallen ones, or they are them fallen ones, and they just taking the appearance of men. And my cat Buttercup there, putting her 2 cents in, but that, it kind of just makes sense to me that, in that 1,000 suns, I mean, or whatever, fire coming down out of heaven. I mean, that's what it says there. They come up against the camp of the saints. Now, I know that, of course, America ain't a bunch of saints. But do we know that there isn't people here that are those saints? That are saintly people? Really the only ones in the world? I mean, because the rest of, America is, like I say, it ain't, perfect by no means. But from what I'm seeing with what Trump is doing to expose all of this stuff, I mean, it's just something about it that there's more to it than what, the news media and all of the talking heads, and there's just way more going on here than what meets the eye. And I think it is preparing us for this coming battle. I mean, and then even like that Hopi, or not the Hopi, but I don't know if it was a Hopi or Navajo or somebody, the Red Hat prophecies from 1971 or 72, somewhere along in there. It's similar to this. About these, and they show these symbols, like the Nazi symbol and something else. Well, that would, that would be, this European, because that's and speaking of the Nazis, the Southern Poverty Law Center down there in Georgia somewhere, they got caught. If your objective, if you're set up to combat racism and if your mission as an organization is to try to get rid of racism and discrimination and stuff, but you're taking, and really up until Barack Obama, race relations in this country were at an all-time high. I mean, people were getting along until him, and he became the great divider. I mean, that guy was, dividing everybody. Well, this Southern Poverty Law Center, turns out, was funding the KKK, the Aryan Nation, the Aryan Brotherhood. I mean, all of these racist organizations. They were private. They were secretly, through all kinds of back channels, funding them. Because, and there's probably more than one reason, but one of the reasons is, well, there's no reason for them to exist unless there's some kind of racism or something that they can say, look, we got to fight against this. And they're getting all this money from donors and all this stuff, to support them. And it's funny, the Southern Poverty Law Center is ran by white people. So they've been exposed. It's the same thing I was talking about a while ago. How they, the keeping these people at each other, keeping chaos going, keeping, this constant, conflict. So you can, charge higher premiums on insurance. You get, and you keep the prices of the commodities and oil and all that stuff up. I mean, all of it. And so, you have this Southern Poverty Law Center, and these Trump has systematically been dismantling all these things, like USAID, all these NGOs that were these NGOs were taking and funneling money back to politicians, and most of them were ran by some of their relatives and stuff. And people like George Soros and others that sow dissension and division through these NGOs, and we're funding it. We're paying for these people to destroy our country. Isn't that funny? They're taking our money and using it to destroy us. We're paying for our own destruction. And thankfully, probably because of the people that are right, that have been praying. The prayer of the fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And America, despite all of its flaws, has tried. For the most part, we've been, have been a light to the rest of the world, even with all our flaws. We've done, we got rid of slavery, the institution of slavery, and not just here, but we went around the world getting rid of it. But it's, whenever that central bank got control here, then they were able to start controlling people and buying people off. That's Satan's number one tool, is money. And that's why the scripture tells us the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Because, and it's the love of it. And those people are being outed and rooted out. And they're going to be held accountable. Everybody's, I want to see people doing the perk walk and wearing the orange jumpsuit. This is way beyond, people have no idea the level of this battle. They don't have a clue. I gotta turn this light down. It's blinding me. Well, all it would. There we go. Yeah, it's better. Things blind me. But even when you look through scriptures at people that were raised up to do great things, they wasn't always perfect people. Look at David. He wasn't. By no means. He done a lot of things that he was, that he got punished for. And but it's what's in your heart. The desire you have in your heart to do what's right. Even if sometimes you don't. We sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. And I'm a prime example. I'm hard on myself, about when I do something I shouldn't and all that. But that's the nature of man. But our heart and our mind should be towards our Creator. The Creator of heaven and earth and all that therein is. And so, I don't know, but I just see, like Washington, I kind of see these black clouds on the horizon. They're awful ways, but but I can just kind of see it coming. And is this right here that? And because again, if everything in there has been fulfilled, and we're in this little season, and so the script for this wasn't written. It's a test to see what we're going to do. Are we going to stand up against the evil? mean, that's all I can see it as. Are we going to keep our belief through it? And so and I think that's one of the reasons why Trump is wanting Greenland, and they, may end up taking Canada too. If Canada wants to try to side with China and the European Union and all that, they may just say, no. I mean, I don't know. I think they're saving them for last, because they're firmly in the City of London's back pocket, because Mark Carney was the central banker for the Bank of England. That's their main bank. That's the central banking system's main bank. It's the Bank of England. And so, I mean, and they were getting ready. They were getting ready to move just like they was wanting to try to move the center of military and economic power, political power, out of the United States and over to China. They were going to move the financial center to Dubai, I think, the United Arab Emirates. Well, that all got shut down with this Iran stuff. It's all been shut down. There's a whole lot of stuff got destroyed over there that was intentional. The Iranians destroyed it intentionally. That's the reason people can't figure out why they would attack their neighbors that they had agreements with and stuff. They were attacking the City of London's infrastructure there, their banking infrastructure and all that other stuff. Just saying. When you begin to see this stuff is how it's playing out and what Trump has been going after, and the ties of all of it to the City of London and the Vatican, the attack, he's on the attack against them too. The pedophiles, the child trafficking. They've already recovered out of all them children that the Biden administration lost track of during the invasion. Over 300,000 children, 350,000 of them that they lost track of, don't know where they was at. Well, they done recovered over 150,000 of them. And I think it was in Southern California somewhere they recovered like a couple hundred at one place. Or thousands at one place. I mean, it was a lot. And they, reconnecting them back with their real parents and stuff, back to the country where they come from. They, locating their relatives, which is expensive and takes time, but they are truly trying to destroy this evil system that traffics in humans, that sacrifices these children to Baal and Moloch and drinks the adrenochrome from them. They sell that stuff for $2,000 or $3,000 an ounce, and only the elite can afford it. And I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, they had him on video down there on Epstein Island down there, drinking it and talking about how it made him feel. That it was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. So, this is pure evil, and it has to be stopped. This trafficking in children, this trafficking in women for sex slaves and men and boys to sexually abuse them. And to make them, run drugs and stuff for them. Mules. And sacrificing them. Chopping them up into pieces. I mean, they found a place down there along the border down there with like 1,500 bodies in it down there. A mass grave. Chopped all up. And of course, again, the Mexican government, they're terrified to do anything because these cartels are more powerful than their army is. They got their own armies. And they've been trained by people that were trained by our military. People that we trained for the Mexican army, in like special operations kind of stuff, they went back to Mexico and they found that it was more lucrative to go over here and train these cartels in tactics and stuff. Of course, it ain't going to do them no good because, again, we've got technology that is, we can watch every move they make and never even set foot on Mexican soil and take them out. But we want, what Trump and them's trying to do is they're trying to get these countries to take their sovereignty back. He don't want to be a globalist and control all these countries. He wants them to be sovereign, independent countries, and that's why that Liberation Day, he's negotiating with these countries individually, not through the World Trade Organization, not through individually, not just one great big package fits all. The globalist model. No, I'll deal with you as an independent, sovereign nation. And we'll work out a trade agreement. NAFTA, all that stuff's going away. That CA or CUSA, whatever it was, that last between Mexico, United States, and Canada, that's gone. That's gone. All of that. All this WTO stuff. We're out of all that stuff. And then and there's other ones coming, like the United Nations. It's over. And Congress started funding them back because they issued the money. But they're going to go too. And the IRS is going, the central bank's going. And all of these globalist organizations, WTO, the IMF, all of that stuff is going away. And they ain't liking it. The royalty over there, the elites over in Europe, we've been subsidizing their bohemian lifestyle over there, where they can have high-speed trains and really nice highways and really nice roads and bridges and all that stuff, while we're defending them. While we've spent probably $10 trillion over the last couple of decades defending Europe. And as it presently is, they couldn't blow their nose because they wouldn't have the dynamite to do it. Everything that's over there militarily, infrastructure and all that stuff, we put it there. And then whenever he called him and said, come down here and get your oil, you come get it. Come take it. They didn't a single one of them make a move to do nothing. Wouldn't let us fly over their territory, wouldn't let us use their bases and all that stuff. See, we know that and he done that for a reason, which was to expose them, whose side they're on. You got to expose it. You got to, and Trump is a master at drawing these people out. Even though sometimes he gets a little crazy, but even using profanity and stuff like that, but this is how you draw these people out. Expose them. You got to expose the snake before you can cut its head off. And so that's that, and y'all can disagree. I'm not here to make people believe anything. I'm not, I've told you that from the beginning. It's not my place to come in here and make you believe anything. I just want to make you think. I want to stir your mind up and get you to thinking. And do some homework. Look around, listen, watch what's going on. Now, there's a lot of voices out there. There is a million of them. and they're all squalling and squawking and I don't even like X. I got off of there because there's so much noise on there. I mean, so much squawking and just hatred and division. But again, that's a mechanism too. Elon Musk, he's in league with Trump and them to expose all this stuff. So there's you watch and you see all, and you expose all these bots and all of these foreign agents and all that are involved over here trying to circumvent our elections through these election machines. That's the other thing about Maduro. That stuff, them machines was invented down there by Smartmatic. Them election machines, voting machines. And they created them to cheat. That's what they did. So they never lose an election. And then somebody up here said, hey, that's a good idea. We might need to, so they created a company up here to do it. And they bought that company. And they showed them how, to do it. And so, and then this guy that was adamantly, suing everybody because they were saying that Dominion was, rigging the elections and all that stuff. He left there, and here just not long ago, he came out and admitted it, that they were doing it. That these foreign countries, Serbia and China, Serbia, and the city of London was the one orchestrating it all. Over there in Italy, they were all going in and altering the vote counts and stuff like that. I mean, I saw it on TV on the ABC or Fox News when they was calling the election. I saw Donald Trump. He had this many votes. He had like 150,000 votes. And Joe Biden had like 90,000 votes or something. And then all of a sudden he's got 150,000, and now Trump's got 90,000. I mean, I can see, I can see you not getting any more votes, but I can't see you losing votes. I mean, how does that work? You've got documented 150,000 votes here, tallied, and then all of a sudden now you got 90. And I mean, I saw the things change on TV, on Fox News, because they were calling the election in 2020. And people pointed that out. I mean, and people say, well, they lost 60 different lawsuits in court. So no, they didn't. They did not lose a single lawsuit that they had over that election. What happened is that they said they did not have standing. And of course, the voters, if they don't have standing, who does? But all that's being exposed. And Trump said, regardless of what the Congress, he's testing these people. He's he's basically drawing out these crooks, these traitors. Why would your own party not want to pass the Save America Act and do whatever you got to do, even if it means getting rid of the filibuster or calling to order a standing filibuster where they got to get up there and debate why that they don't want it? Why would your own party not be wanting to do that? Because they're cheating too. The rhinos or whatever, it's the uniparty. They're all in bed together. They got a cushy thing going. The Senate is they're the political elite, the statesmen. That's the way they look at themselves, as above everybody else. And they don't draft anything. They don't draft legislation or nothing else. A bunch of PACs, political action committees, and a bunch of these advisors and these political advisors and stuff like that. They're the ones that write the legislation to benefit them and their companies and the Federal Reserve and all these people. That's how all that works. Well, how do you get them? How you draw them out? You put something. You get a bill in there that you put in there, and you get Congress, the House of Representatives, to draft it up, because there are people in Congress, in the House of Representatives, that are patriotic people that want this. They want to correct all the corruption and get rid of it. So they drafted it up. Not these outside actors. They drafted it up and they sent it to, and they passed it, and they sent it to the Senate, and they would not pass it because they're corrupt as the day is long. There's some in there that's decent people and that have our best interest at heart, but the majority of them in there, they don't. They are all in bed with the City of London and the central banking system, the cartel. And of course, you know, to be fair, they may be threatened. You know, their family may be threatened. These people are not above. They kill presidents. They killed Alexander Hamilton. Aaron Burr was a agent of the City of London. He was an agent for the City of London, and he was a professional duelist. He'd done it for a living. And so Alexander Hamilton was not. But he had his honor challenged, and so he felt he had to duel him, and of course Burr killed him. And they killed Abraham Lincoln. John Wilkes Booth, he was an agent for the City of London. And the City of London, the British, they're the ones that started the Civil War. They're the ones that was paying for the South. And most people have no idea. They were financing it. And of course the Catholics was, you know, involved with the Union, the Vatican, both sides fighting, you know, but it was all, you know, they had a purpose for it, because at the end of it, they killed Lincoln, and at the end of it, there was a coup in 1871. That's when they really began to infiltrate and take over the government there in Washington, and got rid of all the people that were patriotic people. They just used it as a pretext. And so, you know, that's what they always do. They finance both sides of it. Every conflict. You go look at any conflict, they own both sides of it. And they was trying to get us into a war with China and Russia. They wanted us, especially Russia. They have a big hatred for Russia. They have a big hatred for Russia because they won't let them get control of their banking system. They've tried ever since the czars, and they the ones that overthrew the czars and put in communism over there. I mean, you go to look at the history of Stalin and Lenin, they were Illuminati. They were part of the Illuminati in the City of London and all that. I mean, they were all in on it. And, you know, turned the people against each other. The proletariat against the ruling class. That's what happened in China. They done that over there. They done the same thing over there. They turned the proletariat, the people, against the ruling class and against the mercantile class. Overthrew the government, and the government went into exile over in Taiwan. They're still after them. You know, because they don't have the system doesn't have control of them. And so, you know, that's I mean, when you begin to look at, man, I mean, it's a big spider web. I mean, it's a big spider web. And I mean, when you start trying to look into it, you just would not believe it, man. I mean, everything that's all tied into it and involved in it. And that's why they hate on Trump so much, is because they look at him as a turncoat, a traitor, because of his, you know, being in New York, being a big, you know, developer and, you know, billionaire. You know, they kind of look at it like, look, man, we let you, you know, get to this place, you know. Now you turned on us. Well, you know, it was almost like he was just gathering, you know, all these years before he run for president, like he was just gathering the information, you know, because he even got up there when he was when they were having the debates in 2016. He got up there and said, you know, or 2015 or whatever. He was saying, "Look, I know these people. I know what they're doing because I had to deal with them. This is the system they created. I have to work within this system to get anything done, to get a high-rise building built, to get to work in those levels. At that level, you got to rub elbows with them. It's just like with Epstein. Oh, look at all these pictures of him with Epstein. Well, of course, Epstein. That's what he was. He run in these high-level circles. So if you're a developer like Trump in New York, you're going to interact with these people. They're going to have these big galas and balls and stuff, and you're going to be invited. You're going to go, and you're going to be seen with some nefarious and not nice people. But that doesn't mean that you have some kind of relationship with them. They're just one of 500 or 1,000 people that are at this event. Maybe it's a fundraiser or something. And you're there, you donate some money or whatever, and get your name out. So he's, matter of fact, he turned Epstein in to the district attorney down in Florida, or to a sheriff down in Florida, which is, being from New York. No, man, I mean, that was dangerous. I mean, real dangerous. The mafia or somebody kill you, for being a rat. But he's the one that turned him in when they originally caught him down there in Florida and charged him. And the only reason he got out of that, as easy as he did, was because of Prince William. And then Prince William, he's been he's had all of his position, money, everything taken away from him over there by the king. And he's coming here next week. He's coming here to grovel, because they see the writing on the wall. Their system is going down. But see, what they wanted to do, they wanted to start a world war, because they knew their Ponzi scheme was getting ready to collapse. I mean, you can't have 300 or 400 trillion dollars in debt around the world, that's weighing every country in the world down. They're all going to collapse, and they're going to all look at you. They're going to all figure it out that it's because of you. So what do? You start a world war, get the United States drug into it. Hopefully, China and Russia will gang up on them and defeat them. And then China can be the new dominant power in the world with their authoritarian system. Or, maybe they'll be destroyed too. And out of the ashes, the phoenix will rise, and it'll be a feudalist system. We'll create a feudalist utopia of 500 million people or less. George Guidestones and all that stuff. They tell you what they're going to do. I mean, they either tell you in symbology, or they just come right out, flat out, and tell you what their intentions are, to get rid of people. And so, I believe that the Most High is using Trump to expose it all before they got a chance to do that. That's why they won't leave Ukraine alone over there. And now they're saying they're going to arm up and they're going to go against Russia. And then they're going to try to, use that Article 5 to drag us into it. But I think Trump's going to put a stop to that. I mean, sorry. It ain't our war. You started it. You drug us into every war y'all started over there. And in the World War I, World War II, they were all behind every bit of it. And both sides, the Germans and all them, they were in on it. They were in on it. It was all planned. One, to destroy a bunch of them old world buildings, get rid of them. Like Dresden, place like that, they leveled Dresden. I mean, that's all it was them old world buildings and stuff. But also to get rid of people, and to have a reorientation of the system and the money. They could come out with a new, reboot the financial system, all of it. It was just a multifaceted thing. They were all in on it. Oh man, I mean, when you kind of really dig into it and you start finding out this stuff, I mean, because they is stuff out there you can get. I mean, that is logical. I mean, because they connect the dots. They connect the dots that you can look and say, well, man, yeah, this, it makes sense. And you can see what they said historically. I mean, people like Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin and different ones, this stuff's recorded. And it's out there. So, it's like they can't hide it now. The genie's out of the box or out of the bottle or whatever. But that's and so Trump, that's what he's trying to do. But he can't come right out directly and tell you what they're doing. But they're trying to connect the dots for you, so you can see the bigger picture of what's been going on, what these people have been doing to us. We're chattel. That's all we are. A birth certificate is nothing but a promise. It's a article of incorporation. You are a corporation to them. You can be bought and sold, just like an animal or something. That's all you are. And he's trying to get rid of that, destroy that system. But they're not going to go down without a fight. These people, it's Satan. It's Satan, and he don't rule the world. He only has control because we give it to him. Them days are over. He was released, but he wasn't given control. We give him control. Them people that came out of the millennial kingdom, they gave him control. They didn't stop him. They didn't stop those people that joined up with him. And he's limited in what he's allowed to do. He can't just come start blasting us with, high-tech weapons and stuff. He can only tempt us. And if we are in Christ, we got power over him and his minions. But we have to exercise it. We have to believe that we do. And I think that's kind of what the Father has put Trump here for, is to, wake us up out of this sleep. Regardless of what he is as far as a man, the Father can use whoever he wants. But one thing you can say about Trump, he's got courage. He ain't scared. And what does the Father tell us? He says, all the fearful, they won't go into the kingdom. No, you got to be courageous in these times. And realize and understand what it is that we are up against. Regardless of how it plays out, once this is completed, what it leads to or whatever, I don't know. But I know that they are dismantling that system wholesale. And and they'll probably try to kill him again. And they killing other people. I mean, and these scientists and stuff that's at our national labs and stuff that are disappearing. Why? And people that are just going off killing like that guy killed all of his children, 8 children, killed them all. MK Ultra or something. I mean, sleepers. I mean, there's no telling how many of them are in this country. That's why he's trying to get these people out. They done got like 3 or 4 million of them people out of here. And they're going after the most violent and the most criminal elements first. Because, that's the ones you got to get rid of. Because they'll be the ones that are stirring up all this trouble. And not just them, but these NGOs and stuff, this Open Society and these other NGOs, that's what they do. They're paying the Pink Revolution or whatever it is, that guy Singham over there in China, funding all of these NGOs that are stirring up, paying for these protests and stuff. Them people, most of them are old women. Most of them, you look at old gray-headed women that, they own welfare, own Social Security or something, and they just getting paid, a couple $100 to go down here and tote a sign, and just make a fool out of themselves. And that's what they're doing. They're just paid. These are paid protests. There's no grassroots. because a vast majority of American people want these people out of here, because we've seen what come from it. They're draining our resources. They've been paying them people, putting them on Social Security. I mean, you name it, man. That Doge and all, they are getting all that. I mean, they've downsized the government the most since in like 100 years, down to the level that it ain't seen in almost 100 years. And they're going to keep downsizing it. During this shutdown, they got rid of 70,000 people out of the IRS. 70,000. By this time next year, it'll be gone. So will the Federal Reserve. It's going to be rolled into the Treasury. It's going to be a part of it's going to be like the National Bank of the United States. It ain't going to be no privately owned Federal Reserve. It's going to be part of the Treasury Department. And our money is going to be based off of real assets like silver, gold, oil, natural resources, not off of thin air. And see, they took that money, and they're going to repatriate the money too. A lot of people don't know that. All this money they've stolen from us, in hundreds of trillions, it's coming back. They're going to repatriate that money. And every citizen here ought to get a big chunk of money. Because we have been raped. But anyway, I know this is really long, 2 hours. I mean, but I wanted to kind of just bring that out to you, because I've really been, since the last time I've done a video, I've really been pondering all this stuff. I've been doing a lot of research. I've been looking into it. That right there, just something about that, it just I couldn't quit thinking about it. It just kept coming back to me. And I went and watched that guy, Trey Smith. I think it's Trey Smith. He broke down too and started crying. I mean, because it's just something about it, man. I mean, it sets true. We really don't know the real truth about our founders, and what they were really trying to get away from. This system. This satanic, globalist, satanic system. But we've been given other narratives. But when you begin to dig into it, you find out that these men, a lot of them may have been, descendants, may have actually been in the millennial kingdom. We don't know. And they got here, and they decided that they were not going to be under that satanic system. They just wasn't going to do it. And that statue out there, that may have already been here. We're told that Bertolli, made it or whatever and brought it over here, but I think that thing already existed somewhere. And they just disassembled it and brought it here, maybe. I don't know, but I wish they'd tear it down. I wish they would destroy it. But, it's there. But like with Jehu, he didn't go back and tear down all of those high places and those groves and those two bulls that they had there at Samaria and at Dan. He didn't do it, but he did destroy them priests of Baal and those worshipers. He killed them all. And tore and destroyed that temple, the temple of Baal. But that was it. So, I mean, because I think in some ways Trump, because he read from Deuteronomy about, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and turn from their wickedness and seek my face, then I will hear from my place in heaven, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. He quoted that. And he wants to have a national day of prayer. There's something that I think he's really trying to get people to awaken, to Now, that's not to say that Satan might not be working in the background too, and try to turn it to something else. I mean, we don't know. I don't know. I mean, because he's, he ain't, like I said, he ain't going to give up. But I think it's definitely because the way these people are responding. Because again, he does stuff to see what their reaction is, and I mean, they are. I mean, when you see what some of the stuff they're saying, people like Keir Starmer and Macron and Ursula von der Leyen and Merz and different ones over there in Europe, I mean, they are like ravening. I mean, ravening mad because their their slush fund's been cut off. They ain't liking it. And Starmer saying, "Oh, the special relationship is ended between the United States and England." Yeah. And the king's coming over here. Maybe to capitulate. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to call it a wrap on this. I love you folks. I hope all of you will be blessed and that you will, think about what I said and do your own due diligence. Look into it. And like I said, something about that just rings true to me. I don't know. I mean, it just it kept just coming up in my mind. So I decided to download it. And, I know a lot of times whenever there's things going on like that, like the Revolutionary War and other wars, people do get visitations and stuff. I mean, it's not uncommon. And I believe that the saints, the ones who were in the millennial kingdom, the disciples and all of them, and angelic beings, I believe they're all at work in the world right now. I believe they are here, and they're walking among us, just like these fallen ones are. They're walking among us. Voices of reason and voices of encouragement. And they just seem like normal people, but they're not. So just like Paul said, entertain strangers, for you never know when you're entertaining an angel unaware. They do appear to people, and sometimes they just, we don't see it. We don't pick it up. But with that, again, just consider what I've said. Think about it. That if it's true that we are in this little season and all the things that are in Scripture have been fulfilled, and Satan has gone out of his way to deceive us about everything, then Saturday and Sunday are not the Sabbath. It's on a different day. And that, like I said, that guy, he worked it out to where he said he believed it was on Wednesday. I wished I knew for sure. But I've started keeping Wednesday. I just decided I'm going to keep Wednesday. I'm not going to keep these other ones, Saturday and Sunday, anymore, because of the fact of who is keeping it. The deceived and the spawn of Satan over there in Israel. I mean, because they are not Hebrew Jews, they're Ashkenazis, and that's just all there is to it, Zionists or whatever. And the truth be known, over 1 million people have left from over there because they know that something ain't right. All that is a military base over there. That's all Israel basically is a military base for the banking cartel, the Zionists. That's all. All right, enough. I love you folks. See you the next time I get an opportunity to do this. I have to be kind of led, and I just hadn't been being. I mean, I've been focused on trying to work out this stuff in my mind, and so whenever I feel led to do it again, I will. So see you next time.